always have been and I always will be. I'm going to just real quick let you know why I'm doing this way. My computer, or I guess it's the internet here, is been really bad for 2 days now. And you can almost not hear me if I use my computer. So I'm going to be talking on my phone, but I'm really bad at Zooming on my phone because I can't see everybody and I like to be able to see you. So I'm using my mic on my phone and I'm using my camera on my computer. And I know that's really confusing. It definitely is for me. So I'm just gonna assume that you guys don't mind that I'm gonna be doing it that way. So thank you so much. Somebody's given me a sign about something. Two. Okay. I don't know what that means. I am gonna go ahead and start. My sobriety date is March 25th, 2010. That puts me a little bit over 10 years sober. I have a home group, and that's the New Horizons group of beautiful Bend, Oregon. We meet 6 days a week in downtown Bend. Right now, we are currently Zooming with the rest of our society, it seems like. I do have a sponsor who has a sponsor, and I sponsor women who sponsor women. I don't sponsor takers. I sponsor the women who are willing to freely give away what was so freely given to them, because that's the only way I personally know how to stay sober, and I can't help you to stay sober in any way, shape, or form other than what I know to do and what I know works. I don't tell you those things to pat myself on the back or to impress you. I tell you those things because that's what keeps me in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, having a sponsor who has a sponsor and having sponsoring women who sponsor women keeps me in the middle. It keeps me right-sized. Being a member in good standing of my home group, meaning I always have a service position at my home group. I've been taught that no matter where I do service, and currently I'm of service at the area, the district, and possibly going to be at intergroup, none of that stuff matters if I'm not of service to my home group. And whether that's a coffee maker, right now I'm a GSR, but that's not any more important than a coffee maker or a greeter, which I personally think is the most important position in Alcoholics Anonymous. So as long as I have a position at my home group, an elected service position, then I can consider myself a member in good standing, and I can continue during service outside of my group as well. But my group comes first, and they are very current with what I'm doing. If I do want to take a position outside of my home group, right now I am the CPC chair, that stands for Cooperations with the Professional Community, but before I even considered taking that position, I showed up to my business meeting at my home group, which I do every month, but I let them know, and I asked, am I pulling my weight around here? Am I doing my fair share? Because if I'm not, then I have no business doing work outside of my home group, because my home group is my responsibility. And so that's a little bit about where, you know, where I am and who I am in Alcoholics Anonymous. Debbie D calls that stuff my name, rank, and serial number. I like that, so I'll use it. So I want to thank this group for having me. It is such a pleasure to see so many beautiful faces. It's hard to believe you guys are all drunks like me, but you guys look like a really great group, and it's just a pleasure to be here, and I really appreciated talking to Stephen on the phone that day. We have a lot in common. I feel like I'm not necessarily a guest at this type of group. This type of group is a lot like my own home group, and so I do feel at home here. Okay, so I used to tell people that I was born an alcoholic. I don't say that anymore because it's nowhere in our literature. Oh, by the way, you know, if you're ever through Bend, we meet 6 days a week. If you're ever through Central Oregon, and you can always hit me up and I'll take you to a meeting. Chances are we are meeting on one of the days that you're here because we meet so often at my home group. I'd love to bring you to a meeting. Until then, there's my Zoom code. We would love to have you attend one of our meetings and swing by and say hi sometime. So I used to tell people that I was born an alcoholic, but because I am born into a huge alcoholic family. I would have been the first non-alcoholic born on my dad's side of the family in many, many, many generations. I don't say that anymore only because it's not in any AA conference approved literature that that we have an opinion on that can be the fact, that genetics can play a part like that. So today, and I do try to stick with conference approved literature, and I put AA's opinion above Carrie's, and I try to make that a continual practice, which is why I say it at group level right here, right now, is because I have an ego. I have a still defiant alcoholic ego, and I will think that I'm right and I know better than AA. And I have to remind myself by keeping myself in check by saying it out loud that for some reason, God, as he may express himself throughout the United States and Canada, printed in our conference approved literature, for some reason holds a little bit more weight than Carrie's opinion, or at least it's been my experience that that's the case. So I'm going to push Carrie's opinion aside and try to stay with Alcoholics Anonymous. And so today I don't say that I was born an alcoholic, but I can tell you that as soon as I took a drink, if I wasn't born an alcoholic was born. The day I took a drink, an alcoholic was born. And the reason I say that is because I've never had a normal relationship with alcohol. From day one, from the get, I've had an abnormal reaction to alcohol. Now, I didn't know it was called that back then. I didn't, label it an allergy or a phenomenon of craving. Like, I didn't have that terminology. But I can tell you that it was tricky in the beginning in AA because I thought that this thing was an addiction. And, and I guess this is a little controversial, and I apologize for anybody who doesn't, for anybody who has a different experience, but nowhere in our literature does it use the word addiction. Of course, obviously, if you're an alcoholic, you drink a lot of alcohol, you can become physically addicted to alcohol. But I know that for a fact that the first time I took a drink of alcohol, I wasn't physically addicted to it. I didn't have a habit. I had never drank before. And I had that abnormal reaction. I had alcoholism. Our literature talks about alcoholism. It doesn't talk about addiction. Well, it does. In the AA group pamphlet, it mentions addiction on page 18, and I'll just read that real quick. Page 18 of the AA group pamphlet, this is what our literature says about addiction. The primary purpose of an AA group is to carry the AA message to alcoholics. Experience with alcohol is the one thing all AA members have in common. It's misleading to hint or even to give the impression that AA solves other problems or knows what to do about drug addiction. I didn't know that at first. I had a hard time with step one because I wasn't physically addicted to anything. I hadn't gone through the DTs. I didn't have to go through a detox. All of those were yets for me. And the frothy emotional appeal that I saw in my family, it didn't suffice. My family dies before 60 years old, okay, so somewhere in between 40 and 60 years old, at about 90 pounds puking blood. And that's how they go. And I have a huge family. And so where the book says the alcoholic life is the only one I ever knew, is the only normal one that I ever knew, that was the case for me even before I picked up a drink. I mean, I don't remember not knowing what it is to dress in black and go to an alcoholic funeral. That's how we die. In fact, when I got sober in Alcoholics Anonymous, I started looking through my family tree, and I wanted to find somebody in my dad's side of the family that made it past the age 60. And it was really difficult because it took a lot of effort to find this phenomenon that was in my, family. And I finally did. It was like my dad's mom's sister. Yes, my dad's mom's sister. So my great aunt, she made it past 60. And she was 80. So she made it past 60 and then some. But it turns out I didn't ever know her, even though we're a very tight-knit family, because she was 35 years sober in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, and of course she's the dirty little secret, right? Nobody wants to talk about her. So I don't know. Maybe I wasn't born an alcoholic. Maybe it's all a coincidence. I don't know. But I sure did try to prove that I was going to be the first non-alcoholic born in my family for, well over a decade. Countless failed vain attempts that usually ended up me face first somewhere that I shouldn't be, doing something that I shouldn't be doing, in places and with people who I shouldn't be with. So anyway, I started getting in trouble with alcohol when I was 12. That didn't make me an alcoholic. I realized that. My first MIP, minor in possession of alcohol, was when I was 12 years old. My dad was actually on his way to an AA meeting and saw me being arrested. Well, it was before I was actually physically arrested. I was still, that particular night, I had assaulting a police officer, resisting arrest. The list of charges went on, and that was the first of many. So by the time I was 17, I had a collection of minor in possession of alcohol, which was well over, I probably stopped counting at 20. But my juvenile record was huge. And no matter what, and I didn't realize this until I got into AA, but I didn't get in trouble every time I drank, but every time I got in trouble, I had been drinking. And I don't know how that is that I didn't put two and two together. I'm positive that I had drug and alcohol counselors tell me that. I had school teachers tell me that. I probably had, therapists and parents and judges and lawyers and everybody under the sun probably told me that. But it wasn't until I got into AA and I was in a meeting like this, and this gentleman was behind the podium, and he said from the podium that he didn't get in trouble every time he drank, but every time he got in trouble, he had been drinking. And all of a sudden, that magic of me too, that identification, that language of the heart that can only be shared from one alcoholic to another when sharing about himself, hit me like a ton of bricks. I never heard it from my counselors, my teachers, my doctors, my therapists, my ministers. I heard it from that drunk. I heard it from that drunk when he said that about himself. And that magic of me too hit. That identification hit. And that was the beginning of my first step. So I got into Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 30. I qualified for Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 14, when they started sending me to Alcoholics Anonymous to get my slips signed, right? But I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's because, oh my gosh, they were all old and there was smoke in the room and I couldn't identify. No, it was just simply because I did not want to quit drinking. I could definitely still see my life with alcohol. I just couldn't see my life without alcohol. And some lady had the nerve to say to me that I never have to drink again. And I'm sorry, but that was a threat at 13 years old. That was coming as a threat. That was coming as a challenge. And so of course I didn't take it seriously. Of course, I needed to get in a lot more pain and have a lot more wreckage. And so I did. I know that my first memory in general, not my memory of drinking, my first memory of life was when I was 3 years old. The reason that I know that I'm 3 years old in this memory is because my little sister, who was 2 years younger than me, who is 2 years younger than me, was still in one of those carriers, that a car seat that you can take out of the car and you can carry. And so I'm assuming that she was like 1. So, you know, the math puts me at about 3 years old. I don't know, maybe I was 4, but around there. So we were at this barbecue, my uncle's house, and my Uncle Michael and Aunt Carol used to have barbecues all the time. If you were in my family, what we would do on the weekends was we would get together with the rest of the family, and we would all have, you know, a barbecue drinking party. And somebody would end up, you know, falling in the fire, getting thrown in the fire pit. The cops would be called. Somebody would get punched. I mean, that somebody might go to jail. That's just a normal weekend in my family growing up. And so we were at this normal weekend at my Uncle Michael's house. And I remember, so everybody's camp chairs are in a big circle. And I don't know what was in the middle of the circle, whether it was a barbecue pit, or I don't remember what was going on, if people were cooking outside or inside. I don't know about that. Obviously, I was 3. But I do remember that there were firewood rounds, which were these big round pieces of wood between the camp chairs that people were using to put their drinks on, like, you know, a coffee table kind of. And those firewood rounds, they were at the right height, right? They were like, I don't know, 18 inches. I could reach them, and people were putting their drinks on them. And I remember knowing that I'm not supposed to drink the drinks because somebody must have told me that they were adult drinks. But I also remember thinking, you know, those drinks don't look like Coors. I only knew that adult drinks usually come in a yellow can because that's what my dad drank. And I remember knowing, I don't remember not knowing what Coors tasted like. So obviously this isn't the first time I took a drink, because I knew that none for Carrie meant I don't want any anyways, because it's gross. It tastes like Coors. And so when I was being told that these drinks were none for Carrie, that they were not for me, I was a little confused because they didn't look like Coors. They looked like they should definitely be for Carrie. So they were like colorful. They looked like popsicles or something. And I don't know what that's about. I'm assuming that maybe they were like margaritas or strawberry daiquiris because it was summertime and maybe they were making something special this night. Maybe it was a birthday party or something. I don't know. But I remember thinking, that does not look like it should be none for me. So I started, you know, I tasted one. It was at the right height. Nobody was around. I picked it up. I drank it. And sure enough, I was right. It was absolutely for Carrie. It was not none for Carrie. And I spent the next, I don't know if it was 10 minutes or 2 hours, really, to be honest, I don't know. I wouldn't be able to tell. But I remember I spent the next little while doing my rounds. and I was watching for somebody to go in the house to change a diaper or to get something to eat or whatever. And I watched them where they put their drink. And wherever they put their drink, I would make my way over there. This is at 3 years old. Like, this is how manipulative the alcoholic mind was at 3 years old. So I would make my way over there and buy their drink, and I would wait until I could see them go in the house and the door shut, and then I would have my drinks off of their drink. And I remember thinking to myself at 3 years old, don't drink the whole thing or you'll get caught. I don't know where this comes from, you know, but that's the case. And then all of a sudden I got caught. But me getting caught was what was it. This is the bizarre part. So my Aunt Carol, and this is how clearly I remember this. I remember her purple tank top she was wearing, how it had like lace on this side. I remember it so clearly. So my Aunt Carol says, Carrie Elise. She used my last name or my middle name. And I, you know, when they use your middle name, you're in trouble, right? And so I froze, and I had the drink in my hand and I froze, and I just remember thinking, oh no, what do I do? And everybody got silent, and then all eyes are on Carrie. And so now I'm in trouble, and I just kept frozen, and somebody started to giggle. And my Aunt Carol says, is that a drink in your hand? And then everybody started, like, it was like levity. It was like lighthearted. I wasn't like I'm in trouble. And then somebody told me, like, somebody asked something like, have you been drinking the adult drinks or something like that? And instead of getting in trouble and going to timeout or whatever they do back then, like I was being laughed at. And then somebody's telling me to go ahead and take another drink. And then somebody's telling me to turn around in a circle and try to walk a straight line. And now I'm like the center of attention, right? Like I'm the entertainment for the night. And I'm like, oh my God, this is, so first of all, let me tell you, I was born, my life was perfect. My life was perfect for an entire 2 years. And then my sister came along and all the attention went to her. Okay. So I had been starved for attention for almost a year at this point, right? Now all of a sudden, all the attention is on me and I am the entertainment and I loved it. And I can tell you that I will skip the next 25 to 30 years of my drinking story because that is my drinking story. For the next 25 to 30 years, I was the entertainment. I was the party drinker. Attention-seeking behavior was the number one first thing on my character defect list. And it still is, you guys, it still is. I mean, anybody who knows me knows that. It's gotten way better. God has seen fit to remove a lot of that. And that's something I've been struggling with my entire life. Counseling, attention-seeking behavior has gotten me in a lot of trouble. And it wasn't until I got into AA and did a 7-step and God, gave that to God, that anybody has been able to do anything about that. Because I know that if I could do it myself, I would have done it a long time ago because it has gotten me in a lot of painful situations. So that's how I drank. I was a bar drinker. I was a party drinker. Whenever there was a fight in the bar, I was pretty much the cause of it. Whenever there was somebody being kicked out of the bar, I was pretty much the cause of it, where I was the person being kicked out of the bar. Whenever there was somebody, I was the one with all the X's on my hand, cheese cut off. I was the person doing karaoke and I cannot sing, taking my clothes off, whatever. Attention-seeking behavior, pour some alcohol on it, and whoa, watch me go. So that is what eventually landed me in Alcoholics Anonymous for real. I thought that now I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I have a 4-year-old daughter who this one night comes into my bathroom and she sees me putting my makeup on and getting ready to go, and she gets really excited. And I'm going for happy hour, right? I mean, I'm only going to be gone for an hour. I'm going out with a couple of friends. I'm going to happy hour. Why are you getting excited? Why are you getting excited that mom's leaving? Well, she was excited, she told me this at 4 years old, because she knows that this means that the next day is movie day, is mommy movie day. Because she knew at 4 years old that when I get ready to go out at night, I don't come home. And when I wake up the next morning, I'm so sick that I can't do anything, including make her breakfast, and we get to lay in bed all day and watch movies, and she gets to spend some time with her mom. That's hard for me to admit. It's hard for me to admit that at 4 years old, my daughter's Barbie dolls were doing Jell-O shots. Instead of riding the Barbie horses and marrying the Barbie Ken dolls, they were doing makeshift Jell-O shots because she wanted to be like her mom. So, if anybody ever tells a newcomer that they can't get sober for someone else, I don't know. I did. I don't stay sober for anybody else. Nobody could make me drink today. I love my new life, right? I would not trade it for anything. And this might be morbid, but my daughter could get hit by a bus tomorrow and I would cry. I might need counseling, but a thought of a drink is not going to cross my mind. I am a recovered alcoholic, thanks to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and all 12 steps. I was not able to say that during my entire sobriety. That's not my story. So how did I get to that was, well, when I came in for her, not for me, I knew it all, and I was much better than all you guys. I definitely did not want to be friends with a bunch of alcoholics, excuse me. I have friends, thank you very much. I'm the life of the party. I don't need you. I would come in 5 minutes late to the meetings. I would take off 5 minutes early because I don't want you to talk to me, read me, touch me. You know, keep your hands to yourself. Don't pray around me. I don't need friends. I have plenty, thank you very much. And please do not say, if I want what you have, I'll do what you do, because I don't want what you have. You have a half a set of teeth. You want what I have. That's the attitude that I came in with. And so needless to say, I wasn't real liked at first, right? Alcoholics Anonymous. Wasn't super popular because I would tell you guys this, you know? I mean, I was pretty vocal about the fact that I didn't need you, that you needed me, and you needed me to update your literature. You needed me to upgrade your meetings, and you needed me to tell you how to act right, and everybody needed my help. And so this stuff wasn't working, obviously, you guys, and anybody who's new or nearly new, believe me, that is not when I got, or how I got my sobriety date. It's how I got about 20 sobriety dates, but it is not how I got my permanent sobriety date. And that's the book, the word the book uses, permanent recovery and permanent sobriety. So if you take offense to that, you can take it up with the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. But I do, I will tell you that I got a sponsor that I didn't call, I got a home group that I didn't attend, and I got a big book that I didn't read. And for some reason, I couldn't stay sober, right? I mean, I thought I was doing everything that you guys said I should be doing, and it just wasn't working. Finally, I get in enough pain in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous to where I finally got dry. And the way I did that is I was looking for the easier, softer way. You know, I was, like I said, I was coming in 5 minutes early, leaving 5 minutes late, and I was getting more angry and more angry that you guys weren't just telling me the secret. You know, I'm sure that you guys have a secret that I don't have. And of course, it's not going to be in some old book written by a stockbroker and a butt doctor. Hello, you know, that's how I was. But there was some secret, right? There's some secret that I'm missing. And it was a Thursday. I'll never forget this. It was a Thursday. It was a meditation meeting. I'm downstairs at the New Horizons group, the group that's my home group right now. And every Thursday, still to this day, we have a meditation meeting. This used to be my worst meeting. And now today, it's one of my favorite meetings that we have. So I'm downstairs and I'm doing this meeting, and I came 5 minutes late, and I'm sitting through the meeting going, you know what, this is not working. I got drunk last night again. I've been in AA for 9 months now. It's just not working. I gave it a good try. You know, I'm going to check this off my list. And they gave me my cue, which was, okay, that's all the time we have for the day, blah, blah, blah. They were going to ask somebody to read something that they read every single day that I didn't need to hear. They were going to ask somebody to pray. They were going to, you know, and so I get up to walk through the door, because that was my cue that the meeting was over for Carrie, because I don't need all that last 5 minutes worth of stuff. And so I started walking through the kitchen area, and I heard some lady say, wait, I have something to say. And, you know, coming from a bar, I'm a bar drinker. I like drama, right? So I'm like, ooh, what does she have to say? And I kind of leaned in a little bit because she sounded pretty passionate about this thing that she had to say. She's like, for anybody who's new or nearly new, you know, it's a 2-step program for today. Try not to drink. It's a 2-step program. And I didn't even hear really a lot of what she said. It was probably something like, don't drink and go to meetings, which I am mortified if that's what it was. But you know, she seemed like she had an answer. And so I'm not humble enough to ask her in front of people. So I went out to my car and I stalked her and I waited. And I waited for her. And she came out and she got into her car, and I opened my car door and ran over to her car door, and I knocked on her window, and she rolled down her window, and she's like, can I help you? And I said, yeah, well, I don't know, like I heard that you had like a 2-step program, and it seems a little bit easier than than all the stuff that everybody else wants me to do, and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, are you asking me to sponsor you? And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, if you are needing a sponsee, you know, because of course I can't ask anybody to do anything that isn't for them. And she's like, well, sweetie, I'm going to need you to do 90 at night, which I don't have the women I sponsor do. But, you know, she said, I'm going to need you to do 90 at night. I already do. Like, I've already been going to like, a meeting a meeting at least once a week. And she's like, yeah, no, a meeting every day. And I'm like, don't you know who I think I am? Like, I am too busy for that. Like, I have a life. I'm just some alcoholic loser that has nothing better to do with their time than to go to AA. And, you know, and she gets out of her car and she slams the door and she looks me up and down and she says, okay, sweetie, you look pretty put together. Are you sure you're drunk? And I'm like, well, no, I'm not drunk right now. I mean, I was drunk last night, but I'm not drunk right now. And she's like, no, are you sure you're an alcoholic? And I said, well, no, I mean, probably not. I just have a drinking problem and I need to know how to stop. And she's no, listen, sweetie, you're really put together. Did you take a shower this morning? And I said, well, yeah, I took a shower. I mean, yeah. And she's like, and did you blow dry your hair? And I'm like, well, yeah, I blow dried my hair. And did you put your makeup on? I'm like, yeah, I put my makeup on. She's like, I bet that took you about an hour. So from this point on, you got an hour to spend at an AA meeting. If you can do all that and it takes you an hour, then you have an hour to spend at an AA meeting. And that gives you 23 more hours in the day to do all your important stuff that you know, with your huge life. And so I'm like, okay, you know, and she was a little intimidating at this point. She was calling me honey. She had gotten out of her car. She had had her finger in my face. And I just at this point knew that I had made a big mistake and I was just going to say whatever I could to shut her up. And she's like, okay, so you're going to be, you know, you're going to be doing a meeting every day for 3 months, right? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. And she's like, and I'm like going, I'm never going to tell her. I'm never going to, you know, I'll just lie. And she says, great, I'll see you back here tomorrow. Oh, she's going to do 90-92? Like, how am I going to get out of this, right? And sure enough, she was like there the next day. I wasn't, but unfortunately I had given her my number and she's calling to ask where I am. And I'm like, oh my God, this AA lady is stalking me. Like, do I call the cops? You know, like, what do I do? But then no, because I gave her my phone number willingly. So anyway, it got really hard having to go to AA every day. I was feeling really sorry for myself. I was telling anybody and everybody who would listen of my woes of having to go to AA every day. But for some reason, I fell in love with you guys. I started falling in love with the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And for that first month, I did wake up every single morning and I woke up going, oh my God. Other people I heard saying that they were waking up in gratitude, thanking God for another day sober and knowing where their car was and knowing who they were with last night and all this stuff. And all I could do was go, like, poor me, like, oh my God, I have to go to another AA meeting today. Like, my life is worse than ever. And for some reason, within that first 30 days, something switched. And I started liking you guys. And I started thinking your stories were funny. And I started, you know, really, I fell in love with the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. And by the time my 90 days was up, I had like 150 meetings under my belt. And I started doing Alcoholics Anonymous alcoholically. It got me dry. Absolutely, it did. It got me dry. That's ever since that day that I asked her to sponsor me, I've been sober, physically sober. But I'm here to tell you that unfortunately, I created more wreckage in my first year sober than I did my last year drunk. And that's only because for someone like me, and I didn't know this at the time, alcohol wasn't my problem, it was my solution. And when you take away my solution to this huge problem named Carrie, Carrie's defects come out with a vengeance, because I don't have the solution to calm all that back down. And I started doing things sober that I had not even crossed those lines drinking. I don't know how else to explain that other than untreated alcoholism. Can somebody tell me what the time is, how I'm doing on time, please?
Oh, you've got about 10 minutes if you want to take that much, a little less maybe.
Thank you. So I got sober and have lived happily ever after. No, I did the steps. You know, it took me a minute to do the first step. Like I said, it was the hardest one. For 9 months. I struggled. For 9 months, I struggled with that first step because I thought that it meant addiction. And, you know, and I didn't read the doctor's opinion. The doctor's opinion, finally somebody told me, you know, and took me through this book word for word. And it says that, that it doesn't matter how long we've drank for. It doesn't matter how much we drink when we drink. It doesn't matter how often we drink. What matters is what happens when we drink. And page 21 tells me that I could even be, I mean, it tells me that there's even hard drinkers that drink a lot harder than I do, that get physically addicted to alcohol, that even might need detox, right? Might even need medical attention. But given a sufficient reason, ill health, warning of a doctor, you know, new relationship, yada, yada, that man can stop and moderate. So that's the addict. I'm not an addict. I've never even become physically addicted to alcohol. I am an alcoholic. And then the next page, on the next paragraph, it says, but what about the real alcoholic? That's where it talks about me. And it says, he may or may not be a continuous hard drinker, but at some stage of his development, he begins to lose all control of his liquor consumption once he starts to drink. And that's what the doctor's opinion tells me too. All of these and many others. So there's so many types of alcoholics, but it says all of the types and many others have one symptom in common. Not an inferiority complex or an egomaniac, or that we prefer chocolate over vanilla, or that we have road rage. We have one symptom in common, and that is that we cannot start drinking without developing the phenomenon of craving. That's that physical allergy that I have had my entire life. I cannot drink one. I have an on switch and I don't have an off switch. I start drinking and I can't stop until I run out, black out, or pass out. And so once that was explained to me, that it's not a matter of willpower, but I am actually bodily and mentally different from my fellows, it was so much easier to swallow this pill of the program of recovery. So I have this physical allergy of the body, neck down, and then I have neck up, this mental obsession that tells me that I don't have the physical allergy, or I can beat it if I just drink 12 ounces of water with for every 12-ounce beer, or, you know, make sure that I don't drink on an empty stomach, or don't drink on the weekends, and all this stuff that we try, all this stuff that's in our literature. I tried every one of that ad infinitum. And so I knew that I was pretty screwed once I read the doctor's opinion. And it was pointed out to me in the first 44 pages, which is our first step. So then the second step for me was just, you know, maybe there's hope. Maybe there's hope. These people are staying sober, as screwed up as they are, and as, you know, smart as I am. I should be able to stay sober if they're staying sober, right? And so in the third step, and you know, I have a relationship with a God of my understanding today, but in the third step, at that time, I turned my will and my life over to the power of Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole. That's what I had to do at the time. I was too arrogant to believe in, you know, a power greater than myself at that time. So I turned my will and my life over to the care of Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole. I did a fourth step. I did a searching, not a perfect fourth step by any means, but I did the best I could with what I had. I did a fifth step with my sponsor that took 7.5 hours of her time. And I remember thinking, how could I ever give this back? How could I ever do, you know, for someone else, all of the time that she has given me? And I know that I'm recovered today, and I wasn't at the time that I took my fifth step, because at that time, I would have told you that there's no way in hell I was gonna. And today, after having heard probably over 100 fifth steps, and never once thinking that it's a waste of time, and every single time feeling honored and pleasure and just completely humbled by another woman trusting me to read her fifth step to me, I can tell you that I have had a psychic change. I did 6 and 7 within that first hour after my 5th step, just as it is in the big book. I did step 8, which was mainly just the list of, my 4th step list, but I had to throw a few more on there. I started doing my 9th step, made some mistakes during my amends, but I cleaned that up as well. And today I live in steps 10, 11, and 12. And coming from an alcoholic mind that mine was, 24/7, chronic alcoholic, all I could think about was drinking. If I wasn't over the top intoxicated, I was rarely mildly intoxicated. So if I wasn't completely wasted, I was recovering from a terrible hangover, because I got terrible hangovers. Some of them would last 2 days. If I wasn't completely wasted or recovering from a hangover, then I was planning the next drink. So this is 24/7 in my head. I had like a college party up in here going drink, 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 drink. That's what my mind sounded like, right? 24/7. I couldn't even go down the cheese aisle early in sobriety because it shared the aisle with the beer. I had no mental defense. And so to my surprise, and I'll end with the 10th step promises, by the time we get here in the book, and this is not, by the time my 90 and 90 is over, or by the time I graduate treatment, or by the time whatever, but by the time me and my sponsor did everything in this book up until page 84, where it says write, we wrote, where it says pray, we prayed, where it says do, we did. Then she said, okay, now it's your turn to read, down at the bottom of page 84. She read a lot of this to me because I didn't know how to read coming into Alcoholics Anonymous. I taught myself how to read off the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd never read a book in my life other than, I guess, half of Ramona the Great in 3rd grade. That's according to my mom. Anyway, so it was my turn to read, and she said, read here. And I did, and I said, and we've ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as if from a hot flame. We react sanely and normally, and we find that this has happened automatically. We will see that our new attitude toward liquor has been given us without any thought or effort on our part. It just comes. That is the miracle of it. We are not fighting it, neither are we avoiding temptation. See, I don't need to even avoid the cheese aisle anymore. I didn't know that, but I don't even need to avoid the cheese aisle anymore. And I was shocked here, and she says, well, Carrie, when is the last time? Because I stopped here, and I'm saying, we don't have to avoid temptation. And she's like, when's the last time you thought of drinking? And I couldn't answer. It had been weeks, maybe months, since a thought of a drink even crossed my mind. And I'll tell you, from the day we read this page, I don't know, I was 18 months sober or something like that. I don't know. But from the day we read this page to today, so well over 9 years, probably close to 10 years, I have not thought of a drink. And I know that that sounds unbelievable and probably like a lie. I haven't even had a my last drinking dream, I was 18 months sober. Even my subconscious doesn't think about drinking anymore. It's unbelievable. Like these promises, it says here, we feel as though we had been placed in a position of neutrality, safe and protected. We haven't even sworn it off. Instead, the problem has been removed. Removed. It does not exist for us. That has been my experience. The drink problem has been gone for, almost a decade. It hasn't even crossed my mind. We are neither cocky nor are we afraid. That is our experience. That is how we react so long as we keep in fit spiritual condition. So I'm like, well, give me my graduate certificate, right? Give me my diploma. I'm out of here. I am recovered, right? And then she's like, well, slow your roll. Yeah, that would be the case if it was a 9-step program. But we got a 12-step program. We're given these 3 additional steps. And it's because we have a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. And these next 3 steps are how I maintain my spiritual condition. And I love that. I love that it says what we really have is daily reprieve. I don't I would be falling short if it said what we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on our spiritual condition, because I will tell you, I am not in fit spiritual condition 24/7, but it doesn't say it depends on our spiritual condition. It says that it depends on the maintenance of our spiritual condition, and maintenance is an action word. And I can do that action even when I don't feel like it, right? I can take the action and do the inventory every day when I don't feel like it. And I can pick up the phone and when a newcomer is calling me, even when I don't feel like it. And I can pray and I can meditate even when I don't feel like it. And that is doing the maintenance. And so long as I keep doing the action, the drink problem has not returned. And so I'm not willing to stop doing what I've been doing. I'm not willing to stop taking the action that I've been taking ever since I recovered from alcoholism. And because I know that I can unrecover in a heartbeat. I know that I can, I've watched my best friend recover. She was definitely a recovered alcoholic, and she stopped sponsoring. She lost her home group and she became unsponsorable. And within 2 months she drank. I'm not willing to do that. I'm not willing to do that. So I just want to thank you guys again for having me. And today, the bright spot in my life is sponsorship. I sponsor a lot of women. I love service to Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't normally call myself a grateful alcoholic. I did once, and I got called out on that by a sponsor who told me, you want to know how grateful I am for Alcoholics Anonymous? Watch what I do in Alcoholics Anonymous. Talk is cheap. Don't say it without showing it. And so if you want to know how grateful I am in Alcoholics Anonymous, watch my feet. Watch what I do, not what I say. Thank you.